Reader, I here put into thy hands what has been the diversion of some of my idle and heavy hours. If it has the good luck to prove so of any of thine, and thou hast but half so much pleasure in reading as I had in writing it, thou willst as little think thy money as I do my pains ill bestowed. Thus wrote John Locke in his magnum opus, an essay concerning human understanding. So, welcome everyone to this. The first real live stream where we will actually be discussing real philosophy. So this is how this will work. If you guys have any questions at all, just put them down and I'll address them as soon as possible. And I'll begin with a small lecture first to begin with the first two chapters. The lecture will probably only be quite brief, but so yeah, that's basically the plan. And also, just a broad picture. This book was written in first published in 1690, so it's quite old, right? Many of the ideas, I believe, that we will discuss in this series is probably refuted big time. But we're here for the knowledge, right? I'm just gonna see. Hey, I'm very good. How are you? Glad to see you again, Wahid. Oh, welcome, Asta. You're so welcome. All right. So, good start. I just dropped my paper. All right. So let's dig into the first chapter. Oh yeah, I wanted to start by doing this. I hope you guys can see this. I just first wanted to give you guys a broad picture, because during the 1600s and 1700s, there was a big discussion on how we humans acquire knowledge at all. And let's just draw up a line here. So I hope you guys can see. On this side, we have the empiricists. And here is John Locke and David Hume, was it Bacon? Francis Bacon is his name, right? And also, did I miss someone? Bishop Berkeley. And here on the other line, we have the rationalist. And here we find Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz. And the thing is, these are really a line between how we acquire knowledge. And John Locke, you could say that we gain knowledge. Empiricism simply states that the basis of our knowledge is from experience alone, right? And the rationalists, if you're a heavy hitter rationalist, you say that the only way to really gain knowledge is through rational inquiry. And there we find Descartes on the very end, because I believe he says the only way to get clear and distinct ideas is through rational inquiry, through God, really. And the empiricist says, like I said, just experience. And some might be in the middle here, but John Locke is really here on the far end of the spectrum. He basically claims that there is no such thing as innate knowledge or principles even at all, which we will get into. So that's just a broad picture here. So in the first chapter of the book, John Locke is just giving us a broad picture of what he's trying to do, what he's trying to accomplish with the book. Because he thinks since it's called Essay Concerning Human Understanding, we're really talking about epistemology, just like what I've written up here. So it's knowledge. That's what we're discussing in this book. And And because as John Locke looks at it, he thinks that understanding is what actually separates us from other animals. And so therefore, it is an important inquiry. So that's what, and he also wants to make a clear distinction between faith and opinions from such things as knowledge. If you guys don't know, in Plato is usually said to have a JTB theory of knowledge, which is said justified true belief. That is the definition, really, of knowledge. Or, I mean, you have knowledge if and only if you have a justified true belief. And what John Locke, I'm sorry, I lost it. What was I supposed to do? Yeah, so John Locke wanted to distinguish between opinions and knowledge. And what he's really trying, he wants to make a distinction from just having mere beliefs, right? Beliefs and faith is the same thing, right? And he also, what John Locke also wanted to do, he wants to clarify the boundaries of knowledge. What can we even have knowledge about? Can we have knowledge about metaphysical things? I actually, when I read this, I actually started to think about Wittgenstein. If any of you know Wittgenstein, he really wanted to basically refute all inquiries that is about metaphysics, because we can't really gain any knowledge about it. But anyways, now back to John Locke. So John Locke has three main goals that he lays out in the first chapter. And the first goal is to, he wants to find out where the origin of our ideas is. Where does our ideas come from? And then secondly, what kind of, how do we gain knowledge about these ideas? The ideas come from somewhere, but how do we gain knowledge about them? And then thirdly, he states, oh, what is the ground for faith or faith and opinion? And that's what I talked about here, the belief. What kind of grounds can we have for our beliefs or faiths or opinions on that matter? So that is the basically the main thing about, yeah, I was going to read a quote here as well. So here John Locke says on page 56, if we can find out how far the understanding can extend its view, how far it has faculties to attain certainty, and in what cases it can only judge and guess, we may learn to content ourselves with what is attainable by us in this state. So there you see, he put just a broad picture there. So also he gives us a definition. I wrote idea here. How do we even define idea? Well, he simply states an idea to be whatsoever is the object of the understanding when a man thinks. Very broad definition, right? So whatever, when you're thinking about something, whatever the object of that is an idea. I mean, sounds reasonable. So, and that's basically the first chapter. It's pretty short. So let's now get into the second chapter. Let me just erase this. So in the second chapter, he is arguing, the whole chapter is about arguing against innate principles. So I actually don't know who, he doesn't name anyone, but I don't know who he's aiming his arguments against. But let me just give you, I sometimes like to formulate the argument, and then, hear me out. Let me just write this. Hold on. First premise. Universal. Oh. So this is I'm writing up the argument for innate knowledge. So they say that if there is such a thing as universal assent, which basically means if there is something that everybody, all humans assent to, then that is a sign of innate knowledge or innate principles. So, and then the second premise could just be there is such a thing as universal assent. Therefore, there is innate principles. John Locke doesn't really write it up like this, but this is just one tip from me. If you can, it's always good to write up an argument like this, because that really shows that you've understood an argument to its core. And this is basically what the innate principalists say. And John Locke, actually, I would say that John Locke denies both of these two premises. And this is a modus ponens argument, right? So we know if these two are true, then the conclusion must be true as well, since it's a deductive argument. So now let's get into what John Locke says about this argument. Oh yeah, I forgot, sorry. So what principle could be said to be innate? Well, philosophers thought that there are more or less three principles, or rather two, but I'll write them up, all of them. If you guys have seen my episode on formal logic, you guys might be familiar with Aristotle's laws of thought. So the first principle, or the first law, so to say, is the law of identity, which states A equals A. And John Locke says, formulates this as whatever is, which is the first law. And the second principle is the law of non-contradiction. Oh, by the way, this law is called the law of identity. And then we have the law of non-contradiction, which is simply, it is not the case that A and not A, which is really true, right? I mean, something cannot both be a chair and not a chair at the same time. And then the third one, which is what's it called? The law of the excluded middle, which simply states that something is either A or not A. I think a good example would be everything in the world is either a duck or not a duck. It cannot be something in between. So these are the principles that these philosophers claim to be innate principles. John Locke doesn't actually mention the third one, but I think that one is an important one as well. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Would you say that these principles are innate, or do we gain these from experience? Please leave a comment down below if you have an opinion on this. I would love to see. So then John Locke endeavors to refute this whole argument. I mean, the simplest argument is to simply deny the second premise. He simply says that there is no such thing as universal consent or universal assent. For instance, he says that children, and I quote, idiots, do not assent to these two principles. I mean, that sounds reasonable as well, right? Oh, thank you, Asta. I'd say these laws are built into the fabric of reality, so we'll probably come to know them. Oh, so you claim they are not innate then? Yeah, built into the fabric of reality. Yeah, we'll get to that, because, so where was I? Yeah, so John Locke denies the second premise. He just simply says that it is not the case that there is anything that is universally assented to. Children's are an example. They simply do not assent to these two. So therefore, the whole argument falls apart. But then someone might defend themselves and say that, oh, well, but it's not the case that it's with children. I mean, we have these innate principles, but it's just that we have to gain a certain amount of rational capacity in order to assent to 1 and 2. And everybody who assents, everybody who have achieved this capacity of rationality will immediately upon hearing these two principles assent to them. Therefore, they are innate. But John Locke does not think that that is a good argument, because he claims that when you get to a certain rational capacity and you assent at first hearing, if that is a sign of innateness, then basically everything that you hear and assent to at first hearing must be innate as well. And that includes, I think he gives the example of, what was it? Yeah, everything that is sweet is not bitter. And 2 + 2 = 4. All these two, just these two examples must be innate. And that would just be absurd to say that they are innate. Therefore, there is no such thing as innate principles. So, and that is basically, I mean, he gives a bunch of arguments in the second chapter, but the main point from the second chapter is that he completely denies that there are any such innate principles. So here he writes in the, I'm just going to find the page. Yeah, here. Upon the whole matter, I cannot see any ground to think these two famed speculative maxims innate, since they are not universally assented to, and the assent they so generally find is no other than what several propositions, not allowed to be innate, equally partake in with them. And since the assent that is given them is produced another way and comes not from natural inscription, as I doubt not, but to make appear in the following discourse. And if these first principles of knowledge and science are found not to be innate, no other speculative maxims can, I suppose, with better right pretend to be so. So that is basically the gist of the second chapter. Also, I wanted to add, in the second chapter, he gives us what he thinks, how actually one acquires, because I mean, he doesn't deny that these are true. He just simply states that they are not innate. He gives us a picture of how one come to how one acquires the knowledge of these two. He sees the mind as an empty cabinet. When one is born as an empty cabinet that is then furnished by the ideas. And from experience, let's say that we have experience of a cat, let's say, and someone says, "Oh, that's a cat." And then you see another cat, and someone also points at that one. "Oh, that's a cat as well." Then we form the abstraction of a cat, or the set of cats, so to say. And from that abstraction, you simply make the conclusion that these two principles are true. So for John Locke, these two are just a further abstraction, just as the cat, or all of these cats, is one thing, a cat. Do you get what I'm saying? So for him, these are just based upon experience as anything else. So, oh well, yeah, I think that's and that's basically the second chapter, and I think that'll do for today. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, Wahid says, "Not on the mind, naturally imprinted, because not known to children, idiots, etc." Yep, that's basically his. Thank you so much for that one, Wahid. So yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a segue. But what about the knowledge of your own existence, a la Descartes? That seems like it'd be an innate principle. Excellent question. I wonder what he actually would have said about that. That's actually, because I mean, that is Descartes' main idea, and he must have known that principle or that thing. Thank you so much for that question, Asta. I can't really answer your question though. Yeah, because I mean, I for one think that just some time later, I mean, Immanuel Kant actually refutes this whole idea of no innate knowledge at all, or innate principles. That is really the basis of Kant's philosophy, that we have, I think it is 12 categories that we are, what to say, that we use these 12 categories all the time when we go about in the world. If we didn't have these 12 categories, we would basically not be able to do anything. But so that is actually my opinion on this matter. I think that John Locke is completely wrong here, actually. No innate principles would just be weird. But yeah, I think that's it for this episode. And next episode, we'll talk about the second chapter, which will be on, I think it is no innate, what was it? Sorry, what was it? I think it's about practical knowledge, right? No innate, no. I lost it. I'm sorry, guys. No innate practical principles. So we'll discuss that in next week. I'm sorry if it was a bit messy this time around. It was my first real lecture, if you would so say. So thank you so much, everyone who joined in. Take care. I'll see you guys. Yeah, I'll post some videos coming in the upcoming week as well. So I'll see you in those videos. But if not, until then, take care, everyone.